Investigation has barely started. It's going to take months, a forensic examination of the train, the tracks and the management of this stretch of Britain's busiest line. As the Virgin Pendolino raced through the Cumbrian moors, something made it jump the rails and tumble down the embankment. Now, they're examining the carriages and the data recorders from the train. But the split second when it passed this set of points is now, we're told, essential to the investigation. This is a location where trains can be switched between the two tracks. The points are only used when one line has to be closed for some reason. But that doesn't mean they're checked less often. There's a weekly visual inspection, someone actually walking along the track looking for problems. A monthly maintenance check where the points are closely examined. This was last done on the 3rd of February. Every 13 weeks, a full maintenance check is done and the points are partially dismantled. And every year, they're totally rebuilt. Network Rail is bracing itself for this maintenance regime to be scrutinised.
I'll be very concerned whatever the cause of this accident is, because what we need to do is understand the cause, and if there's changes that we need to make in the way we do things, then clearly we need to get on top of that very quickly.
Crashes involving points have happened before. After the Potters Bar tragedy, loose nuts were found lying on the ground. Lab tests suggested vibrations may have been to blame, gradually unravelling the nut here on the left. This time the points involved are different, but so far neither the investigators nor Network Rail have ruled out vital parts again coming loose.
Now tonight, Network Rail finished an inspection of 700 similar sets of points. It's found no problems. And Virgin Train says its services south of Lancaster will run as normal tomorrow, but passengers travelling between Preston and Carlisle will have to switch to a coach to avoid the section of line closed by the crash. Emily.
Tom, thanks. The deployment of more than 1,000 extra British troops to Afghanistan is expected to be confirmed tomorrow. The Armed Forces Minister has admitted it's a difficult and complex area and said reinforcements were needed. Most are expected to be sent to the volatile province of Helmand. Some of the fiercest fighting has been in the town of Kajaki, where 42 Royal Commando have been trying to protect a dam from Taliban attacks. Our correspondent Alistair Leithhead joined them on patrol and sent this special report.
A British foot patrol in Kajaki, one of the most violent parts of Helmand province. Today's task is to destroy caves the Taliban have been using to fire on the 42 Commando base, close to a strategically important dam. Afghan National Army soldiers, trained by British engineers, are going to plant the explosives and complete the mission themselves. And while they worked, up above them on the ridge, we watched a troop of commandos moving towards the Taliban front line, just a few hundred meters away. And that's where the trouble began.
Two of them have popped up, one with an RPG, one with the rifle. They've come up, troops basically stumbled across them, managed to take out the man with the rifle. The RPG man's still out there in dead ground now. They're trying to flush them out. Obviously we're here to give assistance if we need to.
And they did need to. Within minutes there was incoming fire. Well, it started with engagement with just a single Taliban walking across the area in front of us, and it's turned into an awful lot more than that. There's now incoming fire onto this position on the hillside, and an awful lot of fire is going in, probably 2 or 3 different positions. Heavy firepower targeting the Taliban, hidden among the high-walled compounds. Civilians were clearly seen rushing out of the area. Not everyone is an insurgent. Air power brought the fighting to an end after about an hour. The British forces say 3 insurgents were killed. One Marine described the battle.
As we started to assault silently, the one remaining enemy stood up with a rocket-propelled grenade and, much to my shock, fired it straight at us.
And this was that moment. The smoke is the rocket being fired at close range.
As we then began to assault the position again, a round basically went through my trouser, grazed my leg and came out the other side. So very lucky escape.
These battles are not unusual. They happen daily in Helmand. But there was still one task to complete: destroying the caves. Alistair Leithhead, BBC News, Helmand Province.
Iran's President Ahmadinejad has said his country's nuclear program is now unstoppable and has no brake and no reverse gear. His comments come just a day before a UN Security Council meeting in London to discuss further sanctions against Iran after the country ignored a deadline to stop nuclear enrichment last week. The Iraqi president has arrived in Jordan for a medical checkup after falling ill. A close aide said Jalal Talabani was suffering from exhaustion but denied he'd had a heart attack. The statement came on the day a suicide bomber killed more than 40 people at a college in Baghdad. The man detonated an explosives vest after being challenged by security guards. More than a third of children given antisocial behaviour orders could have underlying mental health problems. A BBC investigation has found that many youngsters are being served with an ASBO without having their condition taken into account. The waiting is nearly over for Britain's Oscar hopefuls. The 79th Academy Awards start in just a few hours' time, and many are tipping Dame Helen Mirren to win Best Actress for her role as the Queen. We can go live to Hollywood now and join David Willis, who's on that famous red carpet. David.
Emily, the stars are due to start arriving any time now here on the red carpet. Enormous excitement, as you can imagine, at the Kodak Theatre. As for the ceremony itself, well, some things are pretty predictable, but others, including who's going to walk off with the big award of the night, that of Best Picture, are still wide open.
It's the film industry's big night out, a night when all the speculation finally comes to an end and a golden statuette can transform fortunes. In a life in which very little is certain, this woman stands alone. Dame Helen is the hottest favourite the Oscars have seen. As a member of the Academy, she voted herself. But for whom?
I'm not telling you. You know what I did. Oh.
She's one of a long list of British hopefuls. Dame Judi Dench is also nominated for Best Actress, alongside Kate Winslet. It's the 5th nomination of Miss Winslet's career, Dame Judy's 6th. The Best Actor race sees an 8th nomination for Ireland's Peter O'Toole, but he's facing stiff competition, not least from Leonardo DiCaprio.
You ultimately leave it up to everyone else, you know? You have no way of manipulating the situation and no way of, you know, guaranteeing anything. And that's, I think, what's exciting about, you know, specifically the Oscars when people watch it, is that anything can happen.
Makes me curious. Anything at all, particularly when it comes to Best Picture.
He's clean.
The Departed, Martin Scorsese's £30 million blockbuster, could win if the Academy decides this is finally his year.
I'm putting it in gear!
But a movie made for a fraction of the price, Little Miss Sunshine, is turning the big award of the night into a Hollywood cliffhanger.
And other nominees for the Best Film are The Queen, one of 6 awards that it is up for at this year's Oscars, Babel and Letters from Iwo Jima. Now, the Oscars gets underway here at the Kodak Theatre in less than 3 hours' time. Emily.
David, many thanks. News 24 reporting live from that red carpet tonight. You can catch up with all the results on breakfast tomorrow morning with Kate Silverton in Hollywood. Now, with news of another trophy for Chelsea and all the rest of the day's sport, here's Mary Rhodes. Mary.
Emily, thank you very much. Good evening. An eventful Carling Cup final ended with Chelsea coming from a goal down to beat Arsenal 2-1. England and Chelsea captain John Terry was knocked out and taken to hospital following a kick in the head. 3 players were then sent off after a brawl on the pitch. From the Millennium Stadium, Kevin Gary reports.
It had been billed as the kids versus the cash, and ultimately it was settled by big-time experience, but not before Arsenal's youngsters had given a tantalising exhibition of their talents, taking the lead with Theo Walcott's crisply struck first goal for the club. But Chelsea was soon level as Drogba, given too much space, made full use of it. Even if Arsene Wenger had clearly been expecting an offside flag. The second half was as vibrant as the first, with Fabregas only a fraction away from restoring Arsenal's lead. It took more serious drama to hush a raucous stadium as John Terry was felled by a boot full in the face. Knocked unconscious, he was taken to hospital but later released. And his teammates went on to snaffle the silverware thanks to Drogba's wonderfully glanced header. Sadly, it all turned sour with a major melee with almost everyone involved, including both managers. 3 were sent off: Chelsea's Mikel, Arsenal's Toure and Adebayor.
It stemmed from players wanting to win games and backing up your teammates. Of course, in the heat of battle, things happen like that and they escalate. And maybe now you sit down and say, well, you wish it didn't happen, but people want to come and see a final that 2 teams want to win, and that's what happened.
It's a shame that Chelsea's triumph and what had been a splendid game should have been marred by a minute's madness. But there was at least the relief for Chelsea and England supporters of seeing Terry returning to the stadium to rejoin his victorious colleagues, having suffered no serious injury. Kevin Geary, BBC News.
There were 3 games in the Premiership today. You can see all the highlights on Match of the Day 2, which continues over on BBC 2 now. Well, Blackburn moved into the top 10 of the table after a 3-0 win over Portsmouth. Robbie Keane scored twice, set one up and was then sent off in Tottenham's 4-1 win over Bolton. And Paul Jewell celebrated his 250th league game as Wigan manager with a 1-0 win over Newcastle. Ryan Taylor scored the only goal of the game, which moves them 6 points clear of the relegation zone. A very late comeback put Celtic through to the semi-finals of the Tennent's Scottish Cup. They beat Inverness Caledonian Thistle 2-1. Graham Bain had given Inverness the lead after 18 minutes as Celtic struggled to create chances. But 2 goals in the last 2 minutes from Stephen Pressley and this one from Kenny Miller put Gordon Strachan's side into the last 4. Finally, the cricket umpire Darryl Hare has withdrawn his claim of racial discrimination against the Pakistan Cricket Board. Hare started legal proceedings after being dropped from the ICC's elite panel of umpires. Well, that move came 3 months after he was at the centre of controversy in the forfeited test between England and Pakistan last summer. It's thought that Hare will still pursue a case of unfair dismissal by the ICC. And that's all the sport from me for tonight. Emily.
Very thank you. Let's get the very latest on the weather with Philip Avery.
Emily, thanks very much indeed. At last, I bring you good news about the forthcoming weather, albeit rather short-lived. It looks as though Monday is shaping up to be a much drier and brighter affair than we've seen of late. Fewer showers, and that's the way of it for tonight as well. Many of today's showers dying away. We'll just keep enough cloud, though, across the northeastern corner of Scotland to keep some rain and drizzle going there. And it'll turn pretty chilly once the cloud clears from the west of Scotland, so too Northern Ireland, but elsewhere relatively mild. So on through the day on Monday morning, you'll see that eventually we pull this cloud away from the eastern side of Scotland, and drier and brighter conditions gradually topple their way across many parts of the British Isles, although the cloud always just that little bit thicker towards the east. So a glorious day in prospect across many parts of Scotland, even brightening up in the Northern Isles, although it really won't do much for the temperatures here, and just a bit of a northwesterly breeze setting in. To the western side of the Pennines, dry, fine and sunny. Over towards the east, always more cloud. The sunshine a wee bit hit and miss here, and that's certainly going to be the case across East Anglia and parts of the southeast as well. But tuck yourself away from the northwesterly breeze, and it will feel actually spring-like. Late on in the day, I have to say, though, across parts of the southwest of England, coming up into the western side of Wales, you'll see your sunshine turning increasingly hazy. And that'll certainly be the case across Northern Ireland, where you'll be robbed of your sunshine as we bring a band of weather in from the Atlantic. And that will produce some significant snowfall across the high ground in Scotland and some very wet weather across other parts of the British Isles as we move on to the course of Tuesday. At least it turns milder, though, with a top temperature, Emily, of 13 degrees.
Philip Avery. The main news tonight. Accident investigators will publish their initial findings into the cause of the Cumbria train crash tomorrow. That's the latest. There'll be news throughout the night over on News 24 from all of us here. Good night.